Hello everyone, this is Unreal Noob and welcome to the third lecture of Unreal Engine for Beginners tutorial. We are making an Infinite Runner game, and in the last video we made such that we can move left and right and we do not fall off once we have reached the leftmost tile and or the rightmost tile. And also the flows are spawning one after the another, and also in the behind tiles are getting destroyed one at a time. So in this one we will make sure that for the mobile part we can just move left to the right by just swiping, and we don't actually have to rely on keyboard inputs. So let us get started. The first thing we will be requiring is to open up our project settings, and in the input we want to add action mapping and call it swipe touch, and in this one we'll use the touch one, and we return back to our BP player, and over here we call the event action event. We called it swipe touch, and I already have these variables made, but I'll just delete these so that you can see what I'm making. So I'll add the variables. The first one would be the touch start, and it would be of the type vector 2D. Just type in vector 2D and you'll find it, vector 2D. Duplicate this one by pressing Ctrl W over it and call it touch end, and we'll make another one, and we'll call it B is pressed, and this would be of the type boolean. So when we have it pressed we want the boolean to be true, and when it's released it should be false. Also we want to get the player controller, and we want to get the input touch state, and this X and Y will store it, will set this after we have pressed the swipe touch, and we'll just split the structure pin and put in the location X to the X and location Y to the touch start Y, and there we have it, our touch start variable set. This will get where we first touch our mobile or the screen. Call it swipe touch. And in the event tick also we did not comment this one out in the last video, so I'll just name it move left slash right. Also we want to have the custom events set over here. Let's call it move left, plug it in over here and call it move right. Sorry, let's make another custom event and call it move right and just plug it in. So now in the event tag we want to use a sequencer first. Press S and left mouse key to call in a sequencer. It's easier than typing in sequencer over here and just using this. Both of them are the same. So from the first event tick we move forward. From the second event tick we want to know where we stopped touching our mobile screen, and how do we do that? So let's do the same thing again. First we get the player controller, we get the touch input, the input touch state, we make a vector 2D from it, and this one will be our touch end. But before this we need a branch. And what do you want? When do we want to set this touch end? Because this event tick runs every time, and if we let's say this whole canvas is our mobile screen. So let's say we start from here. This is our touch start, let's call it TS. This is our touch start, and what we can do is, like, we can just keep on like swiping like this, and maybe this is our touch end, and it will continue to read it till that time, like until and unless we leave our mobile screen. But do we really want to do that? We can actually keep it, but let's say for our efficiency and for other reasons, let's say we want to have a touch sensitivity, like how far a touch is considered a touch. Do I want to make the touch as long as I'm touching, or do I want to, let's say, make sure that the touch is this much and that is enough for us to, like, mm, take input as the touch end, or maybe this part is suppose can be taken up as the touch end. And also when we um, find this touch start, we can actually swipe it like this, but we don't want to get this one. What we want, we don't want to get the whole length of this one like this. What we want to find out is the displacement vector. So what is a displacement vector? Let's say I have touched from over here to over here like this in a snaky way, um, and this is our touch end. So we have touched from here to like this, but the displacement vector is the straight line from the touch start to the touch end. And if we find the vector length, then we get the length of this. We get a float that will be the length from this part to this part. Let's say this is 5 centimeters. So we get this touch, this length from the vector. If we do if we subtract the touch end minus the touch start and find its vector length, vector length. So we will be doing the same thing. So we want to subtract, let's subtract the start from the end. And we want to get the vector length, 2D length, and we want to make sure if it is more than the threshold we set, and this can be our this one can be our touch sensitivity, and we'll call it, and we'll set up as 150. I just find it to be suitable for me. And also, like, this is not enough, because maybe we are continuing to touch like this, but we have reached 150 over here. We have reached 150 over here, but we are still continuing to touch our screen, and this one will just override this touch end value one after the other. We don't want that. So we want to do it once it reaches the threshold. Once 150 is reached, I just want to save that as our touch end, and I want to reset it. Also, before we do that, we don't want it to running every tick even when we do not have it touched. Even when we have, sorry, we don't want it to be running all the time even when we haven't pressed the screen. So what we did is we called this one B is pressed. So only when B is pressed we want to do all these calculations. So when it is false, when we have moved our hand from the screen, we just want to reset it. Or we can also do a reset from here if you want to do it, but we'll see what which one does what. Okay, let's for now let's just keep it from when we stop touching it. And from here, mm, uh, we have set up the touch end, and now after that we get the touch start and the touch end again. We subtract it to get the displacement vector again, and from here we break it and we get the x and the y of the displacement vector. And from this one we want to get the absolute. What absolute does is, let us consider this as the x, this is the x, positive x, this is the negative x, this is the y, this is our negative y. So what absolute does, let's consider this place. This one would be x1 comma minus y1. What absolute will convert these values as x1 comma positive of y1. So this is what absolute does. It converts from negative to the positive value. If you hover over it, it will say the same thing, returns the absolute value of a, the positive value of a. And we will do the same thing for the y as well. And we'll see if the x is greater than y. If it is true, if the x is greater than y, we are doing the left and right movement. So, and the other thing we want to check is if the x is greater than 0 and the y is greater than 0. Yeah, so if the x is greater than 0, if the x is greater than 0, it would be right, and the other way around it would be the left. So let's see what, oh yeah, before that we want to go to edit, editor preferences, all settings, type in touch over here, use mouse for touch is set to true. Make sure that is there. It is wet. Yeah. hmm So yeah, we had it inverse. So the touch end should be minus the touch start, and then logically, because when we divide, we want to when we subtract, we want to subtract the ending from the starting, not the starting from the ending. So yeah, we are subtracting the touch end minus touch start to get the displacement vector. And if it is false, we check if it is, and x is more than, we want to jump. Wait, okay, so the touch input is working. So the only issue that I'm facing is, if it's the y is positive, it should be a jump, because this is the y. So the touch start minus the end if the end one minus, let's say 5 plus 4 and the 2 comma minus 4. If we subtract this, we will get 1 comma minus 2. Okay, yeah, we'll get it as minus 2 when we subtracting. So yeah, if yeah, this would be reversed. Yeah, okay. So yeah, while calculating that, um, I just forgot about that. So yeah, when you are subtracting it, if it the values will come back as opposites. So when we are mm, yeah, so what we should do is we should keep our touch start minus the touch end and reverse these as well, because logically if you do the math, this one will come as true. So this is jump, left is left, if I touch right it moves right. Yeah, this is perfect. So let us go through this one again to see what we have done, so that I can explain it to you once again without any confusion. So we made a input action event, we called it swipe touch, and we have set it to touch 1, and then we made a boolean and called it b is pressed, and if we are pressing it, it's called is pressed, and if we release it, it's called is pressed is set to false. And then when we have pressed, we want to make that point as our touch start, and that part would be a vector 2D, because the screen has the x axis, the x axis over here and the y axis over here. So we get the player controller, we get the input touch state, and we just plug that into the touch start x and the location y to touch state start y. And actually we shouldn't even need these variables. I think if it is currently pressed, only then. Let's see. Yeah, yeah, even we do not need this boolean at all, we can delete. You do not need this variable. So when pressed, we just set our vector 2D from the touch input state, and since this already provides us, if it's already pressed, we don't need to have another boolean and use up resources. That's just useless. So from the player controller, we check if we have pressed something, and also let us, like I said before, like let's see what happens if we do this. Not doesn't seem to be much of a difference, to be honest. Once the sensitivity has reached more than this, automatically think of that as. Also, let's see, let's not have this. Yeah, let's see what happens then. Yeah, we can no longer move. By the way, these green functions are actually pure functions, so that we do not need to plug in the execution pin. These are called pure functions. Also we get the player controller, we get the touch input state, and this state actually calculates the touch end of it, but before it can store the touch end value, it has to favor some conditions for the touch end to be valid. So uh, that the game understands that this is our touch end, and the touch end is should not be stored before or after some condition is met. So what are those conditions? The first condition is we currently have pressed it, which is true, and if it is true, we make sure that the vector length of the displacement vector is more than a sensitivity. It is set as 150. Let's keep it at 50 and see what happens. Now if I just move it a slight bit, it moves to the left and the right. Now if I changed it to, let's say, 500, and if I simply touch it, it will no longer move from right to left. If I touch that a small, now I have to drag it to a further distance for it to move. Let's say, let's make us a very big number. It actually still does. Sorry, didn't we? Yeah, now since we made it a very big number, if I'm swiping as hard as I can, but I'm not moving because the sensitivity is set way beyond the boundary of the screen of the mobile. So this is basically our touch sensitivity input. You can like have it on a scale, or the player can just set it from by selecting a button in the settings menu. So we'll cover all those things later on. So let's keep it back to 150, which is favorable for us. So yeah, once it reaches the vector length, we we subtract the touch start minus the touch end, and the vector 2D length of the displacement vector. If that length is more than this touch sensitivity, this condition is true and we set the touch end. We only do it once, and we reset it once we have left the touch. And from here we get the displacement vector again, and from there we break it into a vector 2D. Sorry, it's already a vector 2D. We just break the vector 2D to get the x and the y values. From there we get the absolute value of the x and the y, and we make sure that if the x is greater than the y, then it's left and right movement, and if the y is greater than the x, then it's a up and down movement. And also we check this one will just give us the left and the right is true, but how do we get the left and right? We then again have to check for the values. If it is greater than 0, then it is left movement, and if the x is negative, then it's a right movement. So how does that work? So yeah, let's get this set up once again. Yeah, so this is the positive x, this is the negative x, this is the positive y, and this is the negative y. So let's consider this point 5 comma 6, and let's consider this point over here, and this one would be, let's say, minus 3. Let's say this one is minus 3 comma 4. So we get this displacement vector, we minus this one this is the touch start and this is our touch end. So we subtract the touch start minus the touch end. So minus, first we check if it's left right movement or up down movement. Let's check that. Minus 3 comma minus 5 and then 4 minus 6, and this one would be 5 plus 3, that would be 8, minus 8 comma 4 and minus 6, that would be minus 2. And so, and absolute value of this one would be 8 comma 2, so 8 is greater than 2. So it's x is greater than 2, sorry, x is greater than y. So over here x is greater than, so it's a left and right movement, so this one is a left right movement. And then what we consider is, again we subtract it and we get minus 8 comma minus 2. Now minus 8 is actually less than 0, so the movement would be to the right, since it is this value, since it is false, it is not more than 0, and it is since it is not more than 0, minus 8 is less than 0, so it would be a right movement to the right, and that's how we get the right movement. And the same would be if we did the opposite, if we consider this one as our touch start and if we consider this as our touch end, things would basically change. Yeah, so basically things would change over here. So let's consider that part. Now this one is our touch start and this is our touch end. So touch start minus touch end, and 6 minus 4, this one would give us 8 comma 2, and the absolute is again 8 comma 2, so which satisfies this one, so it's again a left or a right movement. And now for the other case, this 8 is greater than 0, since that 8 is greater than 0, this becomes true and it's a left movement, so we get the left movement and we move to the left when we are like swiping from left to right and right to left. So this is the logic behind the touch. I hope you guys understood it, and if not, you can ask me questions in the comments and I would reply as soon as I can. Thank you guys again for watching my video, and if you like this tutorial, then please leave a like and subscribe to my channel, because that helps me a lot. And see you in the next one.